The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Independence and You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host and producer, Kristina Liu, along with my co-hosts today, Otto Los and Paula Ewell. Paul and I worked together at the Town North Hempstead Services for the Aging, where I'm the Director of Senior Citizen Affairs, and Paula is the Deputy Commissioner. And Otto, what can we say, longtime volunteer supporter, friend of Project Independence. And we're really excited this morning because we have Lawrence Kosick joining us, who is the president and co-founder of GetSetUp. And this is all about virtual classes for older adults taught by peers, which we love. So welcome to the show, Lawrence.
Thank you very much, Kristina and Otto and Paula. It's wonderful to be here.
Great. Lawrence, now where are you zooming in from? You're not in New York, right?
Normally, I'm located in California. We travel. Today, I happen to be in Whistler, Canada for a couple of days.
Oh, well, you're our first Canadian Zoom that we're doing right now. So
there you go.
We can mark this one down for the books, Lawrence. Are doing. So tell us how GetSetUp even began.
Well, I think we started the business a little before the pandemic. So we've been at this, almost 5 years. And so we thought it was a big problem and a big opportunity to address, even before the pandemic. And that was, myself and my co-founder, we had, older parents. So we all have friends, family, and older loved ones. And I was in particular trying to help my father, who was 89 then, he's 95 now. And I was substandard tech support, and he was very open in telling me, Lawrence, you're very substandard tech support. Like, you speak too fast, you use words I don't understand. What is up with that, right? And so he actually was quite important in helping us come up with the idea, because he would say out loud, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was a place where, folks could make me, help me understand the things that I need to learn using vocabulary that I can understand at a pace that's friendly and easy for me to follow along. And so we really thought about that for a while, and we thought, why is there no safe and secure place where, older adults the idea of peer-to-peer, like reskilling and upskilling older adults who could then teach other older adults. Because when you do that, you do sort of recreate that similar patience, empathy, cadence, and people just feel more comfortable. And if you think about what the problem was with myself when I was my tech support for my dad, I was too fast, using the wrong vocabulary, but an older adult doing that for another older adult solves all of those problems. So that's how we got started 5 years ago.
Could you give us an overview of what actually is GetSetUp? What does it do? And basically an overview, and how do you use it? How do you get to it?
Sure. So it's a virtual class platform, so an online class platform. And as the name would suggest, we started by teaching basic tech. We thought, if we can make it comfortable for everybody to use whatever smart device they have, could be a laptop, an iPad, tablet, iPhone, your Android phone. If we could help them get comfortable with that device, then they could get online. So like a Zoom setting like we're in right now. And they could enjoy their first class and learn from some lives. We started with basic tech, but as I'm sure we'll get into on this program, we offer thousands of different classes across all sorts of different topics, and some of them are fun. Some of them are more serious and academic, but it depends what people are trying to learn and what they're trying to solve for. But GetSetUp's a
So
virtual platform that welcomes older
I could
adults.
access the program with a phone or a laptop or a tablet, depending on whatever device I feel comfortable with, let's say.
You bet. Pretty much any smart device where you can get online, we can help you get into your first virtual class and get a better understanding of what you either want or need to learn, and then guide you there. And hopefully you'll love it and want to keep coming back and learn other things.
Well, I went on to your website. You have a lot of really, really interesting topics, and and it had a button where it said book it. But then I saw things that you're involved with partnerships. So I was wondering, do individuals actually book the classes or do they work? How does the partnership connect to that whole thing?
Yeah, so partners, like the Department of Aging in New York, make the classes available at no cost to the older adults of New York. If a potential business model, if we were charging, most of our older adults, and I tell my father this as well, be very careful in pulling out your credit card and out of older adults into classes. So we realized we needed to make the classes available at no cost, usually subsidized by a partner. Could be a healthcare company, could be a state partnership. And then we could make the classes available at no cost to the older adults of that state, like New York. We thought, we took our best guess at what we thought older adults wanted to learn, and that's why we started with basic tech. But as my dad likes to tell me, he's like, you can only take so much basic tech, and then you want to try something else. Like, what else do you have, Lawrence? And so, we got good early on at surveying our older adult audience and asking them what they wanted or needed to learn. Well, the wonderful thing about older adults is group. And so, you quickly learn, not only basic tech, but, how to learn types today. And we curate those because that's a very large, overwhelming amount. We probably feature, several hundred at any one time, but we rotate those to keep them fresh. And we work with, our partners in the state of New York and in other states to understand what the priorities are, what programs are available that we should be teaching people, and that's how we offer what it is we offer.
I when I looked, I saw all these classes and what ran through my head. I've had technical stuff in my background, and I know what's involved in terms of putting things together. It's not like just a magic wand. So somebody had to write these apps. Somebody has to manage them, make sure they work, fix them, do whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, does GetSetUp have a big staff, or is this all through like people like you just described who are kind of connected as partners?
So our staff, um, a great team of people who share our mission and wake up every day thinking about what kind of programming we need to create to empower our older adults to do the things they need to do. And so they think about ways to make the website more approachable, what kind of classes, both live and on demand, need to be there, what's the right length and style and vocabulary to sort of to deliver this programming, and then how do we work with our state partners in New York to get the word out, because one of the most that will they come, and so the marketing and awareness piece is one of the most important. And services that our older adults are trying to access. So we want to teach them how to sort of think through that and navigate through that.
Yeah, I
So,
just wanted to
I'm
add
sorry.
that. Oh, go ahead, Otto. Okay, I was just going to say we get the New York State Office of Aging e-newsletter every month, and so there's all of your content is on there when we go through and we go to the website. And I'm going to just say up front, we've underutilized what you've had to offer, and now it's wonderful that you're here talking to us. So we send it to all our nurses and social workers, that link, nice sofa. But I don't know if they get to the point, and I'll send them the cookie. There's some interesting things. And Project Independence is an aging in place program. So we're more in the field and people coming to our offices. But we're going to make sure that the nurses and social workers can sit with the seniors at home when we're doing the field visits to help them log on the first time. And this,
well, I think that's like a perfect thing. So what could you walk us through, Lawrence, like a first time user, how this kind of goes down?
Sure. So, to Paula's point, like we're trying to get the word out, any way we can, and it's one of the reasons why it's wonderful for me to be here with you all, because this helps us, with more New Yorkers discovering that these resources are available to them, because they most to work with the state of New York and say, listen, the city, in the suburbs and in the rural areas, go to the senior center, and they couldn't go to the YMCA and the different places where they might have otherwise gone to take classes in person. I started to call the different departments of aging and ask about their education budgets for older adults, and how are they going to use those if older adults couldn't visit, the senior centers. And largely the answer I got was, well, we're not going to be able to use that education budget because everybody is stuck at home. And so I said, well, if I could help by delivering virtual classes that people could enjoy in the comfort of their own home, would that be helpful? Could I access that budget? And it was an overwhelming yes. I mean, everybody needed help.
That's great. Yeah.
Right? Because people suddenly, everybody was stuck at home, and this demographic in particular had to now learn how to use and access every service virtually. So that went from, maybe some basic tech to, well, how do I use telehealth to stay in touch with my doctor?
Function function as a senior, really.
Talk to them, ask them on a very regular basis what it is they're trying to grapple with. Do you understand your health plan, or do you need us to teach you, how to read that, understand that, distill that? Do you understand sort of the different technical skills you might have if you want to re-enter the workforce? Something like LinkedIn, if that's sort of your new digital resume, how do you use that? How do you update that? How do you go on an interview if you haven't been on one in 30 years? Like, those are very practical things that people are curious about, that we're very happy to help with.
Awesome. Wait, Otto, hold that thought, because we're going to have to take a break. After the break, we will continue talking with Lawrence Kosick, who is the president and co-founder of GetSetUp, all about GetSetUp-Virtual Classes for older adults taught by peers. You're listening to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast, and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios Podcasts, available on any podcast app. Those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
Welcome back to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host, Kristina Liu, along with my co-hosts, Otto Los and Paula Ewell. We're going to jump right back in with Lawrence Kosick, who is the president and co-founder of GetSetUp, all about the virtual classes for older adults taught by peers. So before the break, we were kind of talking about all the ins and outs of the program. And the only thing I do foresee, in dealing with seniors is, is there some kind of tech support
first class. That's a very important part. The onboarding and activation is really key to what we do, because if you think about products being built today, increasingly they're built to be more self-service. This is products and services. So, for example, if you go and open up a bank account, there's a pretty high likelihood you might be told to go scan a QR code and then go figure it out on your own. Or if you go buy some headphones at Best Buy, you may not even get any directions, paper directions. You might just get either a URL, like a web address, or again, a QR code. Go scan it and figure it out yourself. And I think that presupposes that we all have a base level of technical
a basic
proficiency
knowledge,
that we
right?
can go do it, right? And that's just not always true. Sometimes it is, but if the world becomes increasingly self-service, but we don't bring our older adults along, that's the fastest growing portion of our population, right? And so I think we can make a good business case to, technical companies and service providers and whatnot that, if you really think about how to activate and service older adults, they can be a really wonderful customer base for you. But don't forget about them, because they need a slightly different level of onboarding and activations, particularly as the world becomes a little more self-service. So that's a place that we can help.
Well,
Yeah, because that's huge. Yeah, because I know it could be very, that initial experience, I know, in dealing with, I'm thinking about my grandpa, who one time asked me, what's in between Facebook and an iPhone. So I was like, all right, we're really starting from the basics here. But, especially with our seniors, if they have a bad experience, try it, and then they just throw in the towel and say, forget it. So I think that is such a wonderful piece. And would they call a phone number, or how does that work?
We have on a number that you can call. And we continue to iterate on, the way to design things, the size of things, the accessibility. And one really sort of a interesting story I like to tell is, my co-founder, who's very technical and does a lot of the web design and product design, he's 40 years old. I'm 58. And so the way a 40-year-old who's very technical may design a website is very different than the way, say, a 60-year-old might. For example, a very technical designer would put a lot of features and functionality and bells and whistles on a screen, right, inside a sort of an interface. And my dad very quickly said to me, this page is too busy. Why don't you just tell me what you want me to do? Just show me the one or two things on this page that you want me to do, and show me only that, and I'll go do that. And that actually was really important advice for us, because we always think that more is better. If we have more features and more functionality, show it, right? It's optionality, and people will love it because it's selection.
And the easier you make the intuitive part of it for people, like you said, like we have a lot of apps, all of us on our computers, whatever, where we may use 5% of what the app really does. I mean, I use all of Microsoft stuff and whatnot. I probably use 5% of what it does. The other 95 is like, I'm never going to use it. I don't need it, but it kind of clouds the picture a little bit. And I think your point is very valid and strong about, like your father said, keep it the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. Yeah.
I like that.
Well, and this is where a basic use of AI actually comes in, because people ask us, do you teach people about it? Absolutely, because
Yeah.
it's in the news all the time. And
I
the
was,
first
I was
thing
that was
we
like my next question, Lawrence, because
Oh, I'm
that's a
sorry,
very hot
Kristina. I didn't mean
topic.
to
No,
steal
no,
your
that's no,
thunder.
I'm glad that was perfect because it's such a hot topic now, I mean, in all aspects of our lives, and a lot of our seniors have like a real concern about, what it is or how it works and all that.
Well, the first thing we do is teach people how to use it safely. Like what are some of the scams that they might want to be sort of vigilant in identifying, and making sure that they feel a little more comfortable with what's out there and how they can use it. But then the way we think about using it internally is to build curriculum that helps simplify complicated things. So if you think, one of the things that we're good at is, perhaps, for example, when we plan, right, we get these they could better understand, do I have access to Uber for rides to my doctor? Can I use Instacart to get food delivered? And this OTC benefit I have, how much is it and where can I use it to get, shop for groceries on a monthly basis? So we can demystify a lot of these complicated programs and documents by using AI to simplify it, help us turn it into curriculum using easier to understand vocabulary that better resonates with our older adults, so they can take advantage and better understand these important programs. And that works on the healthcare side, but also on the government side. If they're trying to understand, SNAP nutrition or a jobs program or caregiving resources, again, government websites and this documentation and how to navigate and find them and check your eligibility. There's a lot of complication there that we can use AI to distill it down to something that's more summarized, it's in friendlier language, and something that's teachable.
I've been using AI and it has an image of fear because, yes, there will be people who will use it the wrong way. But a very small example, I've had some issues with Easy Pass. All right. They said I didn't pay and they charge you a fortune, administrative fee, whatever. So I go on AI and I say, I want to find out if I'm alone with this problem, right? So I go on AI and I say, well, has Easy Pass New York, New Jersey been having problems with their system? And I get a one pager. I'm not in this game by myself. And another example, I family stories, history, whatnot. Above, we have to have some rules to keep this thing
Yeah.
contained. But the power of it in a positive way is unbelievable, really. I, I do have a question for you like one of the things with AI, like if people use it, you go on and you used to put a question into like Dr. Google and you would wind up, you have 28 websites you have to go through to try to pick an answer out from each of them. What happens now is you get an answer right away, and you're no longer going to those websites, which I do believe is ultimately going to impact a lot of business as far as websites are concerned. But I'm, as you can hear, I'm a big proponent of the idea.
I mean, it will be a wonderful, if used properly, it can be a wonderful resource for older adults, because if you think about what I mentioned earlier about a lot of these products and services living sort of behind a complicated app or a complicated website or buried in a PDF, the fact that it can go and retrieve these things and deliver it in a synthesized way means that in many ways an older adult will not have to contend as much with all of that sort of technical friction. And so that as a delivery mechanism, we think, has some wonderful possibilities.
I agree.
Yeah, it's
Suppose
really just, okay, go ahead, Otto. Go.
Paul, I think you asked earlier, let's say I or go on the website, am I free to just
have been amazing. And that's why when I get the newsletters and I read, but now what I'm going to do is direct our staff specifically to come to the site, to come to Get Set Up, pick a few classes for themselves to look at. And then we can start talking to seniors about, encouraging them more or doing it with them. And clearly we have a monthly advisory committee. We get about 50 people attending every month. And we will definitely be putting this on.
I already noted it. I said this is going to be part of the agenda packet because it's really, I think it's
Wonderful.
so beneficial. And our program, has been around for many years now. And it's just, we talk about this all the time. We see the shift. I remember, the surveys that our seniors would fill out. And it's like, do you have a computer or internet? It was like, no, no way. And this was like, 10 years ago. And now, these surveys come in and you really see that, they have a computer, they have internet, and a lot of them are just not sure or scared to kind of how to dive into that world, so we're really trying to push, becoming, tech aware. And Otto is our like tech ambassador of our members, from the beginning, really. And we said, like, if you want to communicate with, Otto says all the time, you want to communicate with your grandchildren, this is how they communicate, so it's finding ways to, to do that. And it's so important. And it opens, especially our seniors in North Hempstead, your classes seem so interesting. So I'd love to know, give
And then once you're able to get in and out of classes, there's a whole host of really interesting things that you may either want or need to learn, right? So there's a fun sort of arts and crafts area. You can learn, pottery, photography, all sorts of fun things. There's a travel section where you can learn how to travel safely to other places and hear from other learners who have gone to places where they want to share their experiences. The big health and wellness category. So everything from, cooking healthy recipes to, discovering new recipes. to eating healthy at home, exercising at home, in yoga, meditation, you name it. There's probably something for everybody there at all the different sort of levels of ease and difficulty, depending on people's levels. And then things like job skills, right? If people want to learn things to help keep them in the workforce or re-enter the workforce, what might they need to learn to do that? And so there's things like that. There's caregiving resources for people who need to think about, how can I live at home longer? Or I have a loved one, how can I help them live at home longer? What do I need to know and learn about maybe retrofitting the home or outside resources to complicate mine? I may still be working, but I care for an older adult. What do I need to know about? And so there's lots of different interesting classes available depending on what you're trying to solve for, what you're trying to learn. And those can be
Media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now.
With Lawrence Kosick, who is the president and co-founder of GetSetUp, virtual classes for older adults taught by peers. And before the break, you were giving us a little sample of the classes. I shouldn't say little sample, a huge sample. There's a lot going on. So is there like a search bar? Is there categories? What can like our listeners, if they go to the website, how do they find, because they might not even know what they're necessarily looking for?
Yes, so there's all of the above. We try to make it as approachable and discoverable as possible. And so because there are so many fun and interesting classes, we do grapple with, what's the best way to feature them, but not show too many so that it's overwhelming. And I think sometimes we do show too many and it is a little bit overwhelming. But the best place is usually, an introduction or an overview of GetSetUp can be a good, fun, interesting session to hop into. And it gives you a good overview of where everything is. And if you need some help, how do you access some support to get it? But how to navigate the website so that you can see the different categories of classes. And we have both live classes and we have on demand, right? So there's both. And we originally started by just offering live classes, but then we realized that sometimes, people either arrive late or that time doesn't work, or they want to review a class again after they've taken it. There's a whole host of use cases where they might want to have a convenient recording that they can quickly access. So there is a lot of those as well. And that makes into a live one. And if it's not exactly the right when we're creating the content. And then of course, we did notice that a lot of people take a class, but then they want to watch it again or review it. And that's where we came up with the notion of, recording these so that people could, review the notes afterwards, maybe watch the class again, review it if they missed something. And we do see folks watch things over and over again to really make sure they get comfortable with whatever that topic may be. So, and then the other thing you'll notice is the different class lengths. Now, during COVID, everybody had more time. We were stuck at home. So most of the classes were an hour long. And then when things opened back up and we realized, well, people are, going outside the house, they might be going to a part-time job, doing some volunteer work, etc. They may only have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And so we wanted to create some short, fun stuff, some medium length and some longer stuff when it was for everybody. But we do notice that like the shorter stuff, and women who more identify have the opportunity, or usually have the opportunity, to pick a path and do one or both.
Those formats are basically somebody, as you pointed out, a peer presenting how you do online banking, for example. Which is another question, by the way. Where do you get the peers to do all these things?
Well, that's a great question, because initially, when we were launching GetSetUp, we thought, well, where are we going to get all the folks we need to teach these classes? And that ended up being the least of our problems. And I'll tell you why. Because once we started teaching the basic tech classes and people took their first 5, sometimes 10, they would raise their hand and they would go, I'm a retired doctor, lawyer, teacher, nurse, yoga instructor. I have some time and I have some expertise. Can I teach a class? And so we started discovering all of this wonderful knowledge and wisdom from our existing user base. And we realized if we just created like an internal academy where we helped take that expertise, but then help them learn how to teach online, because it's a little different standing in front of a physical classroom versus teaching using, a virtual tool like we're using now, like a Zoom. And we put them through that academy. They were able to, in many cases, become the guides that could then teach, the other learners. So it was a kind of a wonderful outcome where the learners were getting enough comfort and then coming forth, raising their hand and telling us about this wonderful expertise they had.
Getting in touch with to maybe voice the fact that they'd like to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure. Links and opportunities around our website where we do, highlight some of the future programming we're going to create. And, maybe we're looking for, a retired nurse or a retired doctor or a nutritionist, or you never know what we're looking for. It's always a bunch of things, because we're always trying to keep the content fresh and interesting. But if folks are really liking the class formats and style and the community, there's always ways to talk to us to figure out if maybe there's an opportunity to also be a guide. And it doesn't even have to be sort of an academic thing. We have community-led sessions where they're more social in nature. and people want to come and talk and share stories and support each other, or talk about a vacation they took, or things like that, which are less academic in nature. But we have a lot of volunteers who come and like just conduct those and help us with those to help others come and have fun and socialize and just visit.
Well, I think that's great because I, for example, have fortunately grandsons, granddaughters, sons and daughters who know I can go to if I have an issue. But several of them talk at a speed that is way beyond my capability. And also some of them are, here's how you do it. And 2 seconds later, the problem is fixed, but you have no idea what they did. They just keep punching away. And I think the reason as you get older, you tend to talk a little slower. Maybe that's the current generation. I don't know. They'll talk fast. But there's definitely a difference in communication rate, let's put it.
Certainly. It's one of the most important things that we think about, which is, the vocabulary, the delivery, the speed, the empathy, which is why we believe that the peer-to-peer approach is probably better. Better than somebody who's talking fast using the latest jargon that we may not all sort of be comfortable with. That's the wonderful sort of part of the peer-to-peer approach.
Yeah, it's really. And like, are there other classes always just like a one-off class, or is there a series? Like, is there an instructor who like
Facebook or how to use Instagram. And that could be a one and done, but there's certainly a lot of things for which we have series because it's a broader topic, and or people want to come back and continue to learn about nutrition and take a cooking class that teaches something different every week, and they run all year long, so you can come and attend with the same people and usually with the same instructor, and it's nice how people become friends and cook together.
That's what, like one of the words that comes up quite often in the material you sent us and throughout is community. This part of it.
So we didn't really set out to create what we thought was going to be a community. We thought it was going to be more anchored on a learning platform, which it absolutely is. But when you teach people when people were creating friendships by coming back to similar classes that they liked together, that was a wonderful sort of byproduct of us
absolutely.
having interactive classes, right? And so that's what we mean when we say community, is that you have people that are learning together, and they're helping each other, because sometimes a subject can be intimidating. But when someone says, I'm struggling, figuring out how to use LinkedIn for this, and 3 other people say, yeah, me too. And then, the teacher says, well, let's just figure this out together. It ends up being comfortable. It ends up almost being a support group. They become friends, and they come back and they take subsequent classes together.
So it contributes to one of the problems that everybody's talking about nowadays, social isolation.
Yeah.
It contributes to helping minimize it. It's not like the golden answer, but it's a piece that could help
Yeah.
people
Yeah, big piece.
not feel like they're on their own altogether.
Exactly. And our goal is not to have everybody sit in front of a computer screen all day, every day. But it's to complement the other parts of your life. So if you can't always get out, or
Yeah.
maybe you have mobility issues, or
Right.
maybe you don't have a
Absolutely.
car, or it can be a part or a core part of helping you do these things when maybe some of those other avenues or options aren't available or aren't always available. Some people, if they live in a rural area and they don't have access to a gym or a fitness center, well, here's a way that you can exercise, from the comfort of your home with people that you know and like at a speed. And so that's really our approach. Is we want to complement the rest of your life and help you do the things.
Technology, but it sure helps to get better at technology because without technology nowadays, you are going to be isolated. There's no question about that. Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to add that during COVID, we had to very quickly take all our programming and, we used Zoom for that. But when we came back to in person, many of our seniors wanted to also stay on Zoom. Like they adjusted, they found how useful it was. And so most of our programs now, we do hybrid. We do both.
Yeah, because I think,
Right.
as you hit on, Lawrence, the
Yeah.
mobility issues and then like the winter weather, a lot of our seniors aren't coming out during the winter,
Right.
and I think about programs like what you're doing and, as much, it's like, I love a program that, you can learn how to cook, but you're also starting this community, right? And that's like my favorite part about these kind of things is like what can develop after. And I think about when my grandfather, was alive, he would, he was alone. He didn't drive, luckily he had my mother and I to go there and stuff, but he would just look for these like phone calls, so it's like, and I think with this kind of platform, you're actually getting to see someone, so it creates more of that, connectivity, which I think is such a special thing, and Lawrence, and just listening to you in this hour, you're listening to the community. And I think that that's the most important thing. And that's how it's going to be sustainable and successful. And I think that so many of our seniors, I can't wait for them all to come back after about this, because I think there's going to be a lot of our seniors who are going to be interested.
Well, I did
Guarantee.
see some, as I say, I'm
Will be guided from there to a curated New York area. www.getsetup.io/partner/NY state. But they don't have to remember that. They'll be guided there automatically so that they can see more New York specific related content as well.
Awesome. Well, that is
that
great.
IO is the tricky part.
Yeah, it's all right,
Yes.
but we will promote it.
So we learned that was a good call out there, Otto. One of the things that we learned is early on, I was trying to give my dad the address, and he'd be like, "Hey, you're missing a letter. Like, what's up with that? Where it should be .com. What's up with that?" And so we actually did register .com, .org, .io. right?
Okay,
But I
well,
say
very-
.io now because that's the one we started with,
I
but
like
we
that.
quickly learned, okay, we need to get those other
Perfect.
ones as well.
Well,
It matters.
unfortunately, we are at the end of our segment. I would like to thank you so much, Lawrence Kosick, president and co-founder of GetSetUp, for joining us and filling us in about your great program. I'd like to thank everyone who listened. You're listening to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio.